What is up, roomies? My name is Matthew McCack, and if this is your first time on the channel, welcome on into Room 51. I am coming at you with a Mind Over Meta, where we're going to be talking about, we're going to continue talking about Harry Potter, the Codenames board game by CGE, but we're also going to talk about Devir Games and their new game, Ace of Spades. But I'm joined here today by two awesome special guests. We've got JenCam over here. Yay! And then we also have Jessiye Davis from Jessiye Davis. We are going to talk about all these things. It's going to be just sort of like a conversation between the three of us. But I urge you all to go ahead and also join the conversation in the comments below about the topics that we're going to explore here today. CGE recently, their most recent statement was that they are going to go ahead and continue to produce the Harry Potter board games, Codenames game, but 100% of the profits are going to go towards trans organizations. Thoughts on that, Jen and Jessiye?
I think it was kind of really the only option they had left. I think contractually, like at this point, they would have had to sign. I'm sure. I mean, I'm not an attorney by any way, shape, or form, but they would have had to sign a lot of agreements and all of these things, and I think it's really kind of the only thing that they could do without being in breach of contract. I still have thoughts on that because I feel like they shouldn't have gotten there in the first place. But I think that was probably their only option to try to make this right. And I'm glad they decided to move forward with that plan.
Yeah, I also think that who knows how old the contract is. I'm sure it's not super old, but it's got to be at least 4 or 5 years, something like that. So there's legal stuff there that they can't probably get out of without a lot of money, lawyers, all that kind of stuff. So I think donating to trans groups is the really only play to get back into anybody's good graces. But yeah, we'll see how it all comes out if they continue to do anything else like that. So
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely think that they can do more. I'm glad to see that obviously that the money is going to be donated. They're not going to profit from the game, which is great. I would, like you said, this probably started like 4 or 5 years ago, and if this did start 4 or 5 years ago, then I do feel like, okay, that's when I'm like, I mean, I didn't know that this woman was problematic 5 years ago. It wasn't until maybe 2021 before I was made aware that she was problematic. So yeah, if it went back that long, then at least it's a little bit more understandable. But if this was 2 years ago, I kind of feel like they should have known better. I mean, that's obviously just my opinion, but I do think, and I'm not sure if it is in this statement, Matthew, maybe you can tell me what are their future plans though? Like, what are they going to do to remain inclusive, in the future? Like, is this just oops, our bad? You know what? Let's just not make any money on this. We still have our other games, and this will go away, or are they going to do something active to avoid such things, in the future?
I don't know.
yeah,
The statement didn't really mention anything about that. And I see Jessiye like nodding her head, like, yeah. What were some of your thoughts?
I think also because of contracts and stuff like that, like hopefully they have been like, okay, we're not gonna. But I don't know that. Hopefully their team is looking at their current contracts and contracts from whoever knows how many years ago for stuff they've planned and making sure that they don't have similar issues, I guess. I don't I personally don't love that. I mean, like, I like that the proceeds will go, but I still don't love that the content is because I don't know. She's said many times that anything related to it is support of her and her views. So that's a whole thing. But also, if they have a contract that is 5 years old, there could be stuff in that contract that says they can't say stuff or publicly, or who knows, has to get approved. There's so many different tangles in contracts like that. So I think we don't have all the information. Obviously, it's
Right.
a bad choice. And the statement and what came out that said they were going to support. But I think the statement before that said they were working with people in the community, which
That's
I
true.
don't know who, because it also said individuals, which I don't, but I also feel like they are possibly in a spot that is, we can't say stuff, or I don't know. There's so many different things with legal contracts for this kind of stuff, especially with licensed intellectual
Yeah.
property, that and stuff we'll never know. And it's still, even 5 years ago, I mean, I knew, but I tend to be a very like diving in, because my whole gig in the job life and not job life is like diversity, inclusion, equity stuff. So I'm always deep diving into stuff that a lot of people
Mhm.
aren't aware of. So
I'm
Yeah,
curious.
I was in healthcare then, so I was just completely out of the the loop for most things. So, um, yeah, I hope that this was something that was in the works before, she was making a lot of these statements, before she
It
was
wasn't.
donating the money, before the social media posts, then I I know I've said in comments that this, even going into this licensing deal, was inexcusable. I guess that would make it kind of excusable if it was before she was, I mean, for the best thing I could think of, problematic, which I think this is more than problematic.
yeah.
Then it's a little bit more understandable. But if this was one of those things that it was 2003 and it's very clear that she's doing these things, then I mean, what are you thinking? I think at that point they're just like, oh well, if that's the case, again, if that's the case, then I really think they had to be like, oh well, of course some people will be mad, but how bad could it be?
Yeah, it
And
very much
that's not
felt like,
okay.
yeah, it
Yeah.
very much felt like, well, not, we'll still make money. It won't be that bad.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that, like, I know that there were, I don't know if there still are, but I know that there were LGBTQ plus folks who worked for CGE, and I have a
Mhm.
strong suspicion that they probably told them that this is not a good idea. And they probably went ahead with it anyway. I can't say for certain. That's just something that's a suspicion of mine. I will
Or if they
say,
already made the deal before people knew as
well,
well.
the deal
But
was they said that they made it around 4 years ago. That is
okay.
2021. In 2020 is when J.K. Rowling came out with the essay, um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is not good. um, Now, it wasn't to at that time it wasn't at the state that it is now with her. So you could kind of get away with it a little bit. Should you have done it? No, but um, I could see where you would make a contract anyway at that point. Uh, and thinking that things will blow over. I don't think anybody expected her to become the tyrant that she has become.
Yeah. Not not I did not, even knowing that she was, like gross in several aspects and very transphobic. I also did not expect her to spend all of her proceeds for the like UK Supreme Court. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's not
I
all right.
actually wrote notes on what exactly that Supreme Court decision was.
Yeah.
Because I obviously I said before we started recording, Matthew, that I was watching your video when you were going over some of the comments. And in case anybody doesn't know, UK's Equality Act of 2010, the legal definitions. So this was, she spent about $89,000 USD in today's conversion to help promote the Supreme Court, or to put money towards the Supreme Court making the legal definitions of man and woman based solely on biological sex. So there was the UK's Equality Act of 2010, which is that's where it said, and she spent nearly $90,000 USD in today's money in conversion rates to say, yes, that's what it is. It can't ever be anything more. And it doesn't, I mean, it affects trans people. It affects intersex people. Why? It doesn't change anything for her. As a biological female, also feminist, by the way, and we can define feminism. I wrote that down too. Somebody else's rights for discrimination or anything else does not affect my life in any type of way outside of the way that my friends and people I care about are treated. But it doesn't affect you. Why are you spending $90,000 and all your time and energy to be hateful? And maybe somebody's going to come into the comments and be like, oh, but you're so hateful, Jennifer, because look at what you're doing. Yeah, okay, great. Great story.
But I think it's one of the things I think that is, anytime I talk to someone and try to have a conversation about different aspects of the trans conversation and like biological, I'm like, biological sex and gender are two different things.
Exactly.
They're different things. They're not, that's different. One is just a biological factor. The other is who you are. So, yeah. And
it's such a narrow definition.
Yeah.
Just saying it's biological, that is such a narrow definition. And science has proven that it's not binary. It's not one or the other.
It's never, because a lot of the argument is it's always been binary. It's always been, and this is, there have always been. And if you take away the colonial concepts that were pushed on a lot of different cultures, there were always multiple genders. Mm-hmm. Intersex people have always been throughout all of human evolution, as well as different gender presentations, orientations in almost every facet of society in every continent. So it's just, I'm like, they're not, it's not the same. I don't know how to tell you.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, agree. I mean, just throughout so many different cultures, throughout human time on this planet, it's not always been this definition that people are trying, to push for, why. Which means I still don't know why.
Yeah, the words are different, but the people's expression has been here the entire time. And I don't know if it's new terminology. I don't know. If you just look through history and pictures and like so many different things, it's just because it's a new word that you do not know well does not mean that it is a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different name.
I'm curious. And I want to know, like, for both of you, because people might comment on this video. People have commented already on, well, my previous videos, but also just on these announcements that have come out both for Devir and CGE, saying things like that they're disappointed that they're changing anything, or it's just a game, things along that route.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts there?
I think if you want to have, there's the board gaming community and the tabletop gaming community. It's large, it's diverse, it's becoming more diverse and allowing people that were often previously excluded to find community and find new games and play with people. So just as a business perspective, you don't want to create something and put something out there that is going to divide that, as well as if you're trying to reach a bunch of people the vast majority of people to play your games and to make those profits, it makes no sense to put out a divisive thing like that, because it's not, especially with as polarizing as things are, it's not going to help you. It's a bad business decision if you're looking purely at a business, but it also hurts community because it's not just a game, because even though we're playing games, it's community. We're building community with people, you're doing stuff with friends, you're online on like Board Game Arena or whatever, and you're meeting people and you're playing games. And some of these relationships that you meet online and offline, and you meet people at conventions and stuff like that. And it hurts community as a whole to have these type of games that are harmful to the community. It's like the Devir one or the Harry Potter Codenames one's just it's gonna hurt community and your business.
And I think there's also just kind of like a basic human level to it. You know, like I think when we raise our children, we teach them to apologize when they hurt someone. Like not just if they do something that's like super, super. I don't remember. I think, oh gosh, I can't remember. I did something when I was a teenager that was not nice to my stepmom. I don't remember what it was. I guarantee it probably was not that big of a deal. But I was in a lot of trouble because I refused to apologize. My dad's like, no, you were wrong. You hurt her, whether you think you're right or not. You hurt her feelings. I think I did. I'm assuming. You need to apologize. And the fact that people are so against apologizing is mind blowing because, and I don't know why, because I'm pretty sure most of us were raised to not be assholes. And I don't know if it's just because now we're all like on keyboards and we can't see people's faces, we can't interact, we don't know them. I don't know if that's the problem, but companies apologizing, if you disagree with the apology, it doesn't hurt you. Yeah. Why are you getting on the keyboard and raging out? Go on with your day, touch grass, hang out with your family, friends, whatever, play a board game. It doesn't affect you. You're not the one that's hurt. You're not the one that's apologizing. Why are these people so angry?
And it's also
like
not their, yeah, it's also not their job to accept it either. Because that's another thing that I think when someone does make a mistake and then apologizes and then tries to make, like change it, like, oh, we're going to do this to help mitigate that. Because one of the things that, even though they said they were donating to trans organizations, they didn't say we are going to be looking into our internal culture and how we do things. At least not that I saw. I could be incorrect there.
I didn't see it.
So that is also a thing, because you could be like, okay, so they did this and they apologize. And a lot of people are going to say, well, yeah, so they apologize. So it's great. Great. So now you could just go ahead and keep supporting them. But no, because it's not you can if you want. Some people might, but you don't have to. There's no obligation on the hurt party to forgive you for what you did. Which I think a lot of people expect. You're like, well, I apologize. Why won't you do the thing now? But that
you apologize, but what are you going to do? Like, an apology requires action.
Yeah, and even I apologize, and we're doing this, okay, but is that a Band-Aid, or are you trying to make sure that you're pulling out that root that has caused this thing? Like, are you fixing it for image to make sure that your sales don't tank, or are you actually trying to change that culture and change how you got there?
I do think that
when I was
go for it.
Oh, go ahead. When I was because I was planning on recording a video after I saw Matthew's original video about the CGE situation. And I even went in and I tried to find, is there a like code of ethics for CGE, like anywhere, or some sort of other like standards that they hold themselves to, like a lot of companies do, like an About Us section. And I couldn't find anything. So hack. Like that's normal, just kind of a normal business thing, I think, right? Is that you have your
Yeah.
code of ethics that is public, what you're about, what your goals are for community and all of that. And okay, they don't have it, but maybe it's time to start really thinking about that. Like, what place does your company hold in society and in the board game community? Where do you want to be? Like, what standards do you hold for, do they hold for
Yeah.
themselves? And none of that was there, because I couldn't even just point to it and be
Yeah.
like, well,
And
according to this they say that, but because there was nothing there.
and Devir, very similar there, I would say.
Mm.
In terms of, and there's a lot other stuff with Devir that I've done that just some knowledge of, because I think Devir is a Brazilian company originally. And then there's different dynamics there, and I don't know if Matthew wants to go into that one yet or not, or if you want to.
Yeah, no, let's do it because I
Okay,
think
yeah.
there was a big difference between the apologies from CGE and from Devir. I think
Yes.
I think one was better than the other.
One
Uh,
existed right, like within 2
Yeah.
weeks.
yeah. But I do want to talk about, so for folks who don't know what's going on with Devir,
Yeah.
Ace of Spades, the board game released at Gen Con.
Mhm.
And some people bought this game, and it seemed like a cool game to me. I don't know, but
Mechanics. Yeah.
yeah, right. So, but then the images came out of like what some of the cards were, and one of them, or there was a couple of there was several of them really that depicted gross things, but one of them in particular had a black man like chained up, and you can actually see it
Same.
on the screen.
There's
Uh,
7 cards.
there's seven
Yeah,
It's 7
cards,
is problematic. There's 7.
and he's
yeah.
like drooling.
There's at least some. Yeah, he's got chains. He's definitely have some kind of stereotypical like slave pants, I'll say, and he's called the fugitive,
Yeah,
and
And he's foaming at the mouth.
and
yeah, and
You're
that's
yes,
different,
drooling.
different connotations. And then one of the other ones, the ones that they pointed out in their apology were the fugitive one and the slaver,
Mhm.
who is depicted as kind of like a white guy in kind of that like southern early 1800s kind of dress, like very very slave ownery looking,
Mhm.
and he has a whip, a
Yeah,
long comical whip.
yeah.
Were the two that they apologized for. They didn't apologize for any other ones. So outside of that, those are the two they apologized for. And pulled all of their pre-orders and are going to issue new cards, and it sounds to me like they hired a better PR person to help them clean up than CGE did.
Yeah.
I majored in PR for a while.
I'm like, oh,
Good.
I read it and I said that they hired someone, because for the language in that apology to be what it was in the time, in the turnaround that it was in, if they had that kind of knowledge to have that apology, they would not be in the situation.
Mhm.
Which is why, to me, it reads like, oh, you hired a good person to help you clean this up. And I could be wrong. I don't know.
Even if they did,
I just
I'm glad that they put their money into it then. Um,
Yeah.
to try to rectify something and to because we're all going to make mistakes, right? CGE made a mistake, Devir made a mistake. But then it's what you do
We're
with it.
human. We make mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, Jen. I
I
think
just think
you were
it's
going to say
hard that it
something.
was only the 2, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
those are
Exactly.
technically, I mean, depending upon, maybe even just depending upon your culture where you come from, those might be the worst. But if you're from a culture that might be depicted and the brute, that's pretty problematic as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
There was also
I mean, okay,
several
I'll give
other.
you the voodoo, whatever, but then, the shaman and Sitting Bull, it was just also
The
like,
Sitting Bull.
what are we thinking here? What are we thinking? And I think I read that part of their argument is that they didn't think they needed to use historical or cultural consultants because it wasn't based in a real world. And I'm like, okay, but first of all, you're depicting people that actually existed. Like,
Yeah.
Sitting Bull is a real person that you're depicting as a horned demon. And then obviously there really are, slaves in America. And even if you're based out of Brazil or whatever, then you should have then hired that consultant like you did for White Castle. Like if you're unaware, and I think this was kind of one of my biggest arguments for all of the things.
Yeah.
And just in general, if you are unaware of the culture that you are depicting, whether it's in art, whether it's in theme, mechanics, whatever, then you should at least take the time to become slightly knowledgeable. We are in an era where we can get knowledge so quickly that you don't have to hire somebody. I'm not saying ChatGPT is the best way to do things, but at least you'll get like a synopsis and decide maybe we should get a cultural consultant or historical consultant. Like we exist. There's historians out there. There's students that will work basically for free. Like, there's almost like, why wouldn't you, especially depicting somebody that actually existed in a marginalized community that would experience insane genocide and then make them a demon villain person.
Well, and also the thing too is not even just hiring someone, or is what one of this my biggest takeaway for all of these situations is, if you are making something that you're going to put out in public and you're planning on making a profit off of it and you're publicizing it and marketing it, before it gets to the stage of let's put this out, before it even gets to play test, why does your organization, your company, your friend group not have, why don't you have, you should have people at the table looking at these things that don't look like you.
Mm-hmm.
Your table should have people that are diverse, because if you do not have diverse people at your table, you end up in these situations, and you don't have a good product, as good of a product either. Because, and I'm not just, and I just mean like, oh, a table full of like white people should have like, I'm like any, if everybody in your group reviewing your stuff looks like you're doing it wrong, because diverse perspectives are how you make sure that you aren't accidentally harming people, and that you have the best perspective and the best representation. Because that's where Devir went wrong, is they just, because I read, so the person who created the game, his name is escaping me, I'll look it up in a second, but he had this really long article about how he came up with the concept, and he was super excited to put it out, and he'd been working on it, and he never thought he'd have a game out, and like the mechanics, a lot of people love the mechanics of it, and he worked with a friend and they came up with a song and they did a photo shoot. But I'm like, where did you make sure that other people looked at it outside of just the team inside Devir? Because even if you just use the team in Devir, you should have people on that team that have different backgrounds. That's just how you should build any company at this point in time. Yeah. Otherwise, you have these mistakes. Any team, any organization, if you have all of one type of person, because, oh, hey, we all know each other, we're all friends, let's do this thing together, you're going to make big mistakes that people are going to say you should have known better. It's 2025.
And I think this is even more the case in a way with Devir, because they have used consultants for other games before. And I mean, at least I think it was the Board Game Wire article, because they, it was brought up that they have used consultants in the past, and they were like, oh, well, we didn't think we needed to because it wasn't based in a real world setting. I'm like,
yeah. And I'll say also
then make them elves. I don't know. Like
also the creator talked about, even in their apology, talked about how they were trying to honor some Western themes and whatnot, which I have a lot of there's a lot of different things that go into that, because the Hollywoodization of Western culture is not what it actually is. The first cowboys were indigenous people, indigenous tribes in the area, like the Creek, the Sioux, the Choctaw, and also former enslaved people that had to learn cattle ranching and for their flavors. So like there's if you wanted to depict a black person in a Western theme, you could have had black cowboys. If you wanted to pick indigenous tribes in this, and as it's a Western feeling, you could have also had cowboys that were like, because they were if you're not looking at history, or you're just going to be like, oh hey, we want to make sure that we have this kind of representation. That's where cowboys originally came from. That's where that Western rodeo cowboy thing came from, when Spanish conquerors came over and trained indigenous tribes on how to cattle farm and horse wrangle cattle. So that's where the first cowboys were. It wasn't your Clint Eastwood kind of whatever. And
or the shows, early 20th century traveling shows.
Yes.
Or 20th century
thing that like brought in the Western instinct like that is like, just of that trope, if you wanted to be Western, the fact that these cards that have these stereotypical caricature depictions that are pretty harmful are also just like, I'm sorry, my brain is fully left me at that second, but are just the way that you're depicting them. It doesn't have to be just this, but I think, and also I think some of the, like, I can't remember the names of the cards, but there's one where there's a person that's wearing like some feathered and like a loincloth, and it's like a dagger, and it's kind of, has a very that characteristic savage imagery for different groups, and I'm just like, you could have, they're all villains, but all of these cards are villains. That's where I was going. All of these cards are marked as villains. So the slaver card, if I remember correctly, is like a good guy card, or it could be, I can't, but I know they're all like villains for the way that you do this play. And like the mechanics, I don't think anyone's had a problem with the mechanics, but the other thing, because Matthew mentioned that came out at JenCam. However, people were reviewing this. People had copies of it for review. I watched, I don't know, about 10 different videos from early July, late June, depicting these cards.
Oh, really?
And none of those people had a problem with it.
Really?
Which is it's even bigger than Devir not noticing it till Gen Con, is that so many different reviews and so many different things were like, this is great and this game works. And as I'm going through and I'm like, that would have caught my eye immediately.
Right?
Because the first, now when I was watching these videos, just going over like this, because people were like, have you heard about this Devir thing? And I was like, what's going on? And I look, just watching these videos, for me, I didn't even see the fugitive card with the slave depictions on it first. The first card I saw was the person in the loincloth with the dagger looking with that savage. I was like, oh gosh, why is no one talking about this one? And then I think the second card I saw was kind of like the like voodoo kind of looking thing, and I was like, I don't know. So
yeah, I was like,
there's a number of different imagery within these cards and in the art that could have been a lot more, could have just different ways to address this and depict these things than the art that was, without, because I think they mentioned in the apology Django Unchained as what they were kind of like, I was like,
inspired by.
What?
Which I never saw.
I never seen it either.
I think it's also important to know, and I don't think at any point in this conversation are we saying that people, can't like Harry Potter anymore, or can't like board games anymore, or whatever. I don't think anybody's ever like saying that, whatsoever. And I also think that it's important to study and learn history, and I do think that history has a place in board games. I'm a history grad student. Like, it is, important. The problem is things that need to be portrayed accurately, but then also, and truthfully, but then also carefully. Because right now, I think there's so many people that don't know history or don't care to know because why do I need to know that? Because it's in the past, and whatever. You can argue whatever you want on that part. But if you're going to take the time to put out something that portrays some form of history, even if it takes place in this movie world or whatever, you still have to be careful because, in a way, whether you think you are or not, you are educating people in that world, and it might not be correct. And you have to take some sort of responsibility and accountability for that, especially if you are driving racist stereotypes and ideas. And that's what happened in, this game. So I'm glad that they, are recalling the games and they're changing all the things. But you're right. At some point, somebody should have said something. And I will say, because I've been on social media hiatus since October for the most part, which is part of the reason why I've been a little late to the party on some of these things. But the fact that, that nobody who was talking about their Gen Con anticipation games or that covered the game that reviewed it ahead of time, because somebody had to, I don't know who did, but if you had a copy of this game and didn't go, oh, I have a problem with this, or hey, heads up, I'm not going to show you these cards, but I do want you to know that there are some imagery that might be upsetting or disturbing. Acknowledge something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just, no, granted, if I had had a copy of that card, I would 100% been like, boom, what the heck?
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say
the
something
thing.
else,
That's
but
it.
not my channel. I would have.
Every single other video that I have seen calling them out or saying, I don't know, they should put the art, the game mechanics are fun, but the art feels like you shouldn't support this. We're all after Gen Con and after the call outs, which I was like interesting because there's so many before videos and there's so many people talking about I saw it, blah blah blah, it's game. And even at Gen Con, there's videos of people at the booth at Gen Con playing the game, talking about it, saying, I'm buying this, I'm getting it, and I'm like,
they would have to throw me out of Gen Con.
There's so many different people where I'm like,
my son would have had to hold me back.
Right. It's just I'm like, it didn't occur to anyone, which is why if you don't have a diverse table, you don't have diverse people looking at your stuff, even and I'm a writer, I'm a grant writer in my regular job, and like I still am like, hey, I know I can have a focus of like, okay, does this make sense to you as well as, and that's just in my writing, but also just in imagery. People who have never not seen themselves in media do not think about making sure that people they don't see in media are represented. Because I actually did a presentation today at work, and a few coworkers messaged me, like, I'm so glad that you had in all of your slides, you had people with visible disabilities, you had different skin tones, you had different, like, and someone was like, did you have someone that had vitiligo? And I was like, yeah, any of my stuff is going to have a diverse, anything I do. There's never going to be a time where I do a presentation that's not going to have a diverse range of people with visible and, different disabilities, different religious, whatever. Because whenever I always think about how many times as a kid, when I would see myself, somebody that looked like me, or even now, someone that looks like me in a big thing, in a national thing, in a big advertisement, like even before I stopped shopping at Target, like there was a woman on an ad that had stretch marks and she was a bigger Black woman, and I was just like, what? that she looks that. So people that have never not seen themselves in marketing do not think about it being a problem, because there's so many different biases from just society and the ramifications from like the 1500s of when colonialism just started its big push, that is just ingrained into your thought patterns and the reason I said Devir, they say that they're Brazilian, and the authors are from Spain. The illustrator, I think, is from Spain, as well as the um, creator of the game, the Devir's the Ace of Spades. And so there's different connotations there, as well as Brazil's long history. And this is maybe too much history information for people, but I don't know.
There's never too much history.
Because Brazil did not outlaw slavery until 1888, and and they were also importing until I think 1867 was the last. 1867 was the last ship from Africa that came over. So, they had a longer history, and they actually, oddly enough, of the 12 million Africans removed from Africa for the transatlantic slave trade, 5.5 of those went to Brazil, more than any other place. So they've got, and that's obviously almost 200 years ago, but it talks about how the culture is going to be a little different. It's going to have a little less current things, because one of the things in Brazil as well is colorism is a huge thing there, where they even had a practice that I can't pronounce because my Spanish is so bad, about where it was a national program to, when you got married, to marry someone lighter, that you could have lighter children to make a better race. So it's a long, there's a lot of that stuff is ingrained, and that stuff is going on in the like 1950s. So it hasn't been that long ago that there is this bias of this is the way you should look or should be. And even now, still today, there's still a lot of colorism issues where it affects your job, it affects where you live, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
like, and I don't know if I need to define colorism, but that's basically saying that the lighter you are in your group, the better you are.
Well, thank you for defining that, because I'm sure there are folks who don't know, and it's good to know about these things. I
And
think
I do
that
think it's, oh, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
go for
Go
it.
ahead. I was just going to say, and I think, that's also a very important thing. So of why it is important for people to have other people looking at stuff. So like, because their history is different, and their experience with slavery and racism and genocide and all those things are going to be different than American culture, where we had very
Yeah.
specific stereotypes that were, basically depicted in the art in this game. Those were very American
Yeah.
stereotypes that were used, very prominently in the 20th century, and propaganda and all of these things, and obviously the 19th century as well. So, obviously there is, something said that if you don't know that, then these things can happen. And that's why it's not nearly as, I guess maybe shocking, because they did go, oops, our bad, let's fix this.
Yeah.
Again, there should have been other people that are like, hey, by the way, this might be a problem, like given, the US history. But even then, even more so, if they're not knowledgeable about the US history, they should have done the consultant like Devir did
Yeah.
for the Japanese for White Castle. So I still just don't understand why that wasn't done. But I mean, it's hindsight is 2020, I guess. I don't know, but
yeah, and we're also in hindsight, and I think that's just anybody that is going forward and making something. You're working on your prototype. You're going to bring it to Unplugged, or you're going to bring it to Origins or whatever. Show people that don't look like you, multiple different people that don't look like you, what you're working on, because there's little things that a different culture, even within the US, is going to look at completely different. Because one of the things that people talked about in this game, Ace of Spades, as well as not just the fugitive, the slave depiction and the slave master depiction, but was also the term Ace of Spades and Spades in that context is a lot of people have not heard that because it's basically fallen out of popular out of cultural context. But often in the 20s, it came around during like the Renaissance and stuff. Uh, there's a term like black is an ace of spades, which was basically derogatory, which morphed in its etymology into calling black people spades as
Mhm.
just a derogatory term that was very similar to the N word. And I have had family that were like, yeah, I got called. I ignore this. I got called that when I was younger and stuff like that. But it's not well known, even
Mm.
in like even in the black community, especially black community that does not have a lot of history of family in the South. So there's different things. So like for some people, like they're gonna be like, well, yeah, it's just an ace of spades. But other people won't even say that because they're like, I remember they called my grandpa that or something, like as well as even I run an asexual aromantic support group, and when we were talking about what do we want our cool logo to be for the community center, I even brought up because there's a number of different black people in my group, uh ace of spades. The ace is a symbol a lot for a lot of asexual community. Is this some or do we have a problem with this symbol in this context? Is this something you've heard of?
Mm.
Or we want to make sure we're being sensitive in this. If we pick an ace, that could become a problem later depending on who interacts with this. But I brought that up before we made the logo because
Mhm.
if you don't have people with the knowledge, with the cultural context at the table when you're starting to make stuff and when you're reviewing the stuff, you're gonna make those mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm so happy you brought that up because I was actually going to bring that up about Ace of Spades and how it was a derogatory term. And I thought that it was so unfortunate that the game was then called Ace of
Yeah,
Spades with
that was
then this
very
artwork. Yeah.
coincidental.
Yeah.
That was entirely coincidental, but
Yeah.
a lot of black people did catch that as it was announced. They're like, and it's called Ace of Spades. And I'm like, yeah, that was as bad as it looks on top of this. That was not, it's a poker game. And that
Right.
was nothing. It's bad. I get it's also bad. It looks worse. I guarantee you they had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was unaware of this. So
okay.
I yeah, it's unfortunate
Yeah.
considering.
It's
I was
Oh
like,
golly.
oof. Because when I was told, they're like, did you see what Devir did with that Ace of Spades game and that racist thing? So I was like, Ace of Spades and that racist? What are we? What? And then I was like, oh, it's just it's a card game. The Ace of Spades part is coincidental, but highly unfortunate in
yeah.
this case.
Yes. Yeah. And to your point, Jesse, too, and Jen, you were mentioning it as well in terms of like playtesters, but also specifically reviewers. I didn't know about this game until after Gen Con. Um, I,
Yeah, same.
I, I didn't watch any of the reviewers or anything like that. Um, but I think it's important to also, just for companies in general, to give your review copies to a wider breadth of reviewers and content creators. Um,
Yeah.
you're looking at three who are not, in the cis white het norm.
Mhm.
Well, I am white, but not cis het. So, um, but
I'm half. Does that count? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
um so yeah, giving your games to people, and then for people who are watching this, I mean, thank you for watching people who maybe don't look like you, and maybe you're stoked that you're seeing people who do look like you for once, which is really great. But I would say for people who tend to watch, the norm, I'm not saying that's bad. That's totally okay. There are really great content creators out there that are,
Yeah.
cis white hetero men. But maybe look at other channels as well and see what you find. And see that you know, these games, that these sort of things might be picked up on by other channels that you normally would not have caught.
Yeah, it's because even when you're talking about any kind of diversity, just about in anything, it tends to make whatever the final product is better every single time.
It
Because
does.
I don't know of the only times where a product tends to not, the final product is not, is when you remove those bits of diversity, you take them out. And it's like, and even if you're like Matthew was saying, even if you're watching, you know, your content creators that you like to watch that like to review games, if their channel has guests, but all of their guests look just like them, that means they're not going to have the perspective, most likely. I'm not saying for sure. They're not going to have the perspective of different stuff to be able to catch those kind of things. But if you have sort of like, well, yeah, like I really like their stuff. I really love it. I always, if, because I don't think any of the channels that review board games, and I could be wrong, don't have, most people have guests at some point. At some point you have guests on. I don't know. I'm more in the TTRPG space than I am in the board game space, but I think making, and even if you are a person that is doing those reviews yourself and stuff like that, especially if if it's a game that is of a cultural context and you're reviewing just the mechanics and how it looks and how it plays, it wouldn't be bad to also have that kind of a person hop on and say, hey, yeah, this does jive or this doesn't.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you. Thank you both for joining me on this episode. I know that, you know, this isn't like the easiest conversation to have, but I'm glad that we were able to do it. And hopefully we could have the conversation continue. Like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I will say, if you say, you know, you can say whatever you want about me, it's my channel. But if you say anything about Jen or Jesse, it's getting removed. I'm not okay with that.
You just want to keep me calm.
Yes, we have to keep Jen calm, okay? We can't see that side of her.
You can say that I fidget a lot. I'm aware it's a problem.
No.
Oh yeah, totally ADHD.
Yeah.
We're like all over the place. This is
I've been like spinning around in my chair this
this
whole
is
time.
dedicated. I forgot to bring fidget toys over, so I played with this. I played with this.
Yeah, I've got
this. My water bottle. Like, yeah, we're all over the place.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like, please give this video a like. If you dislike it, it helps the algorithm. Click that button. And please comment below. And if you really liked our content, please consider subscribing. That would be awesome. But I will catch you next time.
And hit that notification bell.
Ding.